Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Brachajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brachajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shishi Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shishi Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai Shishi Gauranitai Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotra Sata His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Kondarachi Mad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Jai Nitai Gauda Premanande Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga All glories to Srila Prabhupada So we continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 20, entitled Studying the Structure of the Universe, Text 5. Can you move the board so that you can see the verse? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Jaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nastapeshu Abhateshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Pratnasya Vishnarupam Yat Ratnasya Vishnarupam Yat Satyasya Tasya Brahmanaha Satyayasya Tasya Brahmanaha Amritasya Chamityoscha Suryam, so Amritasya Chamityoscha Suryam Atmanam Imahiti Suryam Atmanam Imahiti Ratnasya Vishnarupam Yat Satyasya Tasya Brahmanaha Amritasya Chamityoscha Suryam Atmanam Imahiti. Please chant. 25. Mark, would you like to chant? Ratnasya Vishnarupam Yat Satyasya Tasya Brahmanaha Amritasya Chamityoscha Suryam Atmanam Imahiti. Ratnasya Vishnarupam Yat Satyasya Tasya Brahmanaha Amritasya Chamityoscha Suryam Atmanam Imahiti. Ratnasya, of the oldest person, Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, Rupam, the form, Yat, which, Satyasya, of the absolute truth, Ritasya, of Dharma, Brahmanaha, of the supreme Brahman, Amritasya, of the auspicious result, Cha, and Mityahu, of death, the inauspicious result, Cha, and Suryam, the demigod Surya, Atmanam, the supersoul or origin of all souls, Imahi, we approach for shelter. Iti, thus. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. This is the mantra by which the inhabitants of Plakshadvipa worship the Supreme Lord. Let us take shelter of the Sun God, who is a reflection of Lord Vishnu. the all-expanding Supreme Personality of Godhead, the oldest of all persons. Vishnu is the only worshipable Lord. He is the Vedas, he is religion, and he is the origin of all auspicious and inauspicious results. Please repeat after me. This is the mantra by which the inhabitants of Plakshatvipa worship the Supreme Lord. Let us take shelter of the Sun God, who is a reflection of Lord Vishnu, the all-expanding Supreme Personality of Godhead, the oldest of all persons. Vishnu is the only worshipable Lord. He is the Vedas, he is religion, and he is the origin of all auspicious and inauspicious results. Purport. Lord Vishnu is even the Supreme Lord of Death, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Mrityu Savahars Chaham. There are two kinds of activity, auspicious and inauspicious, and both are controlled by Lord Vishnu. Inauspicious activities are said to be behind Lord Vishnu, whereas auspicious activities stand before him. The auspicious and the inauspicious exist throughout the entire world, and Lord Vishnu is the controller of them both. In regard to this verse, Srila Madhvacharya says, so very nice, we have a quote here from Madhvacharya, whose disappearance day is today. Surya Samakni Varisha Vithatrishu Yatakramam Plakshadi Tvipasamastasu Stitam Harim Upasate. There are many lands, fields, mountains, and oceans throughout the creation, and everywhere is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And everywhere the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by his different names. Shravya Agarva Acharya explains this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam as follows. The original cause of the cosmic manifestation must be the oldest person and must therefore be beyond material transformations. He is the enjoyer of all auspicious activities and is the cause of conditional life and also liberation. The demigod Surya, who is categorized as a very powerful jiva, or living entity, is a representation of one of the parts of his body. We are naturally subordinate to powerful living entities, and therefore we can worship the various demigods as living beings who are powerful representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although the worship of the Sun God is recommended in this mantra, he is worshipped not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but as his powerful representative. In the Katha Upanishad 131 it is said, Ritam pibantu sukritasya loke, guham pavistau parame parahade. Jayatapau brahmavido vadanti, pancha knayo yachatri nachiketaha. O Nachiketa, the expansion of Lord Vishnu as the tiny living entity and the supersoul are both situated within the cave of the heart of this body. Having entered that cavity, the living entity, resting on the chief of the life airs, enjoys the results of activities, and the supersoul, acting as witness, enables him to enjoy them. Those who are well versed in knowledge of Brahman and those householders who carefully follow the Vedic regulations say that the difference between the two is like the difference between a shadow and the sun. In the Shvetasvatara Upanishad 6.16 it is said, Savishvakrit Vishvavidataman Yoni Gyakalakaro Guni Savityaha Pradana Kshetakya Patiya Gunesha Samsara Moksha Stitibandha Hetuhu. The Supreme Lord, the creator of this cosmic manifestation, knows every nook and corner of his creation. Although he is the cause of creation, there is no cause for his appearance. He is fully aware of everything. He is the Supersoul, the master of all transcendental qualities, and he is the master of this cosmic manifestation in regard to bondage to the conditional state of material existence and liberation from that bondage. Similarly, in the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.8 it is said, Vishasmat vata pavate, Visho deti suyaha, Vishasmat agnischandascha, Mrityu davati panchamaha. It is out of fear of the Supreme Brahman that the wind is blowing, out of fear of him that the sun regularly rises and sets, and out of fear of him that fire acts. It is only due to fear of him that Death and Indra, the king of heaven, perform their respective duties. As described in this chapter, the inhabitants of the 5 islands, beginning with Lakshadweep, worship the sun god, the moon god, the fire god, the air god, and Lord Brahma, respectively. Although they engage in the worship of these 5 demigods, however, they actually worship Lord Vishnu, the supersoul of all living entities, as indicated in this verse by the words Pratnasya Vishnu Rupam. Vishnu is Brahma, Amrita Mrityu, the supreme Brahman and the origin of everything, auspicious and inauspicious. He is situated in the heart of everyone, including all the demigods. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.20, Kamaistai Hritākyana Prapatyante Nyadevataha. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto the demigods. People who are almost blind because of lusty desires are recommended to worship the demigods to have their material desires fulfilled. But actually, those desires are not fulfilled by the material demigods. Whatever the demigods do is done with the sanction of Lord Vishnu. People who are too lusty worship various demigods instead of worshipping Lord Vishnu, the supersoul of all living entities. But ultimately, it is Lord Vishnu they worship because he is the supersoul of all demigods. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakachatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sachivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripe Vancha Kalpa Tarupyascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pratnasya Vishnu Rupam Yat, Satyasya Tasya Brahmanaha, Amritasya Chamityascha, Soyam Atmanam Imahiti. This is the mantra by which the inhabitants of Lakshadwepa worship the Supreme Lord. Let us take shelter of the Sun God, who is a reflection of Lord Vishnu, the all-expanding Supreme Personality of Godhead, the oldest of all persons. Vishnu is the only worshipable Lord. He is the Vedas, he is religion, and he is the origin of all auspicious and inauspicious results. So this was a very rich purport given by Srila Prabhupada. Any points which you remember which stood out for you from the purport? So what we're actually doing here. So we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam. We just heard a verse and a text, a verse and a purport by Srila Prabhupada. And I asked you if there are any points which stood out from the purport or from the text.
I think it's interesting you can worship the Soryam, the sun god, as a supreme personal god, and because he's his servant. And I feel interesting that he includes the sun god Soryam into this in the verse, the purport, to explain how the demigod can be worshipped, but they don't have any power. They serve the Supreme Lord, but you can see the sun in relationship with the Supreme Lord.
That's the important point here. Huh? So the demigods, they're not independent, but they are in relationship with the Lord, and we know that worshipping a demigod is like an indirect worship of Vishnu, the Supreme Person, because the demigods like a part of his body.
Yes.
Yeah? And because the super soul is present in the heart of also the demigods, so therefore we can worship the Lord in their heart. Anything else? Anything which stood out for you from the purport? Okay. So then we can explore a little bit deeper. I thought to make something different today. We have in Brazil a yearly Bhagavatam retreat. It actually happens twice per year. And this January we finished the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it was an in-depth study of the 5th canto and the previous cantos during the last years. And at this section we enter a topic of the Bhagavatam which is not so easy to understand, namely the planetary systems. It's something very complex, something which scholars take a lot of pleasure to explore all the depths of this topic. But sometimes for the simple-minded devotees like me, this can become a little bit overwhelming. And because you just entered the topic, I thought we can explore different perspectives, what actually this planetary systems or constellation means for us. And Shukadev Goswami, at the end of the 2nd canto, he explains there are 10 topics which are mainly discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Atta saga visagoscha, stanam poshanam uttayaha, manvantadesha nukata, nirodha mukti ashayaha. So there are 10 topics throughout all the 12 cantos which are touched again and again. And our acharyas explain that some of the cantos, they relate to a specific topic. And the topic of the 5th canto is Sthanam. Sthana means the planetary systems. That's the external meaning of Sthanam. But there's also an internal meaning. A meaning which is maybe more related to us, to our present circumstances. Because this word Sthanam also means a place, or it can mean boundaries. So where do we find ourselves? We find ourselves within that universe. That's the Sthanam. And we are in Bhumandala, on a planet called Earth. So here we hear descriptions about 7 islands, of which the first is Jambudvip, which was discussed in the previous chapters. In Jambudvip, in the middle, there's an island. Sorry, there's a difference. There are the Dvipas, which are the islands, and then there are the Varshas, which are the regions. Like Switzerland would be a Dvipa, and then you have the different cantons in Switzerland. So in the same way, that island Jambudvip has different Varshas. And the center Varsha, the middle, is where our planet Earth is located. And Lakshadweep is the second Dvipa or island. And these islands, this is a horizontal perspective on the universe. Which means these islands, they are like concentric circles, and there are 7 in total. And each next is bigger, double in size than the previous one. And these islands, they have some characteristics. Like all of them have a river, have specific flowers, and a mountain. And they are identified by these different aspects. So here we hear about Lakshadweep, the second island. But let's go back to Jambudvip, where this planet Earth is located, on which we are residents. And in the previous chapters it was discussed that this planet Earth has a special kind of facility, because it enables the living entity to either evolute or devolute, which means to rise to higher planetary systems or into the Vaikuntha world, or negatively to degrade into the lower planetary regions. On the top, where are the hellish planets? So this planet Earth, in combination with the human form of life, has a very specific function to achieve liberation. This planet, we can end the circle of birth and death. This is not possible on any planet. Only here on planet Earth, this facility is given to the living entity by following the scriptural injunctions to elevate ourselves back home, back to Godhead. So therefore, Sthanam, in an external sense, it means the planetary system. But in a more internal sense, it means to be properly situated, so that by following the Shastic injunctions, we can elevate our consciousness again to the spiritual dimensions. That's clear?
Yes, I understand.
Good. Now, what's the problem? The Bhagavatam says that the vision of the Bhagavatam is to create a revolution. To create a revolution within a misdirected civilization. A civilization where the Vedic principles are not followed anymore. So therefore, as we said already, this planet Earth, the special function is we can elevate our being into the spiritual dimension, but only when we follow the Vedic injunctions. So what happens if we don't follow the Vedic injunctions? Then we are on the path of devolution, which means degrading into lower species or lower planetary systems. So when Srila Prabhupada came to the Western world, he was accompanying the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not that he brought the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam wanted to come, because the Bhagavatam is the message for this age of Kali. Krishna, he appeared in the form of the Bhagavatam to give orientation to those who are present here as human beings in Kali Yuga. So Srila Prabhupada, he accompanied the Bhagavatam. And the vision or mission of the Bhagavatam is to create a revolution, to direct society again towards God consciousness or God realization. And Srila Prabhupada, he incorporated ISKCON to give facility for that. And very specifically, he, what's a proper English word? He established the Bhaktivedanta Institute, where he brought together his scholarly disciples, those who had some academic background, to explain to the common people what's that constellation of the universe, what's the meaning behind that. So the Bhaktivedanta Institute is very much based on the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, the 5th canto is very important. It's very important to understand the context, what the 5th canto wants to teach us. So let's make a quick recap of the 5th canto. There are different pastimes which are all interconnected. The first pastime we heard in the 5th canto was about Priyavata Maharaj. So he was the second son, or one of the sons, he actually was the first one, of Swayambhuva Manu. And he, as a successor of his father, was meant to populate the world. But he decided he wanted to renounce the world. He went into the mountains, absorbed himself in meditation, and didn't see any need to follow the duty which he was meant to do. But then Brahma, Swayambhuva Manu, they came, they preached to him, and ultimately he got convinced that he should go back and fulfill his duty. So the lesson here is that premature renunciation creates difficulties for oneself and for others, because it creates a disturbance in the universe. Priyavata, he had a great responsibility, which he thought, no, I will not do, I will renounce. But in that sense, he created a disturbance within the universe and society. So therefore, premature renunciation is not recommended. Then we have the pastime of Maharaj Aknitra, who was one of the sons of Priyavata. So ultimately, Priyavata, he went back and did his duty. And Aknitra, he was the complete opposite. He had the desire to go to Pitriloka, and therefore he needed a son. And he got enchanted with a girl called Purvachiti. And he got completely lost in sense enjoyment. So he chose the other extreme. Then Rishabhadev, he appeared as the grandson of Maharaj Aknitra. And Rishabhadev, he taught his sons in Tapodivyam that life is not about enjoying the senses. Life is about performing austerities. But the proper way how to perform austerities is for the pleasure of the Lord. Therefore, tapa, austerity, divyam, for the Lord. Now, one of his sons, Bharat Maharaj, he took that very serious. And when he renounced his kingdom, he went to the forest to practice austerity for the pleasure of the Lord. He also worshipped the sun god there. But he was, the Acharyas say, due to an offense which he performed in a previous life, that he was overcome by lusty desires. And these lusty desires, they were turned towards a deer. So he got attached to a deer and neglected his spiritual duties. And because he was alone there was no one who could give him some feedback to correct him, to say, hey, you're on the wrong path here. So the principle from this pastime is that we always need higher association. Renunciation, yes. Austerities, yes. But within the association. Now we know Bharat Maharaj, when he left his body, he was born again as a deer. But in that deer body, he could remember his past life. So therefore, he knew my problem was that I didn't have proper association. Therefore, as a deer, what he did, he went into the association of sadhus. And he was listening Krishna Katha. And something which is very extraordinary, that as a deer, he could pronounce the holy name. So the vocal cords of a deer, they are not able to chant Hare Krishna. But what we can see is that the holy name descended on his tongue and made his tongue chant the holy names. So what we can learn or take from this pastime, that we endeavor to chant the name, but the name becomes the pure name when the name descends on our tongue. After this, in the body of a deer, Bharat was born again as Jada Bharat, as a Brahmana. But he knew that if I take again up all the education, the formalities, the rituals, there's a risk I become entangled again. So he behaved like a dumb person. He was a pure devotee, fully realized, but he behaved like a fool so that he is not getting entangled again in this world. But then, when he was engaged as a carrier of Maharaj Rahugana, there was an incident when Maharaj Rahugana chastised him. Because while walking with that palanquin, Jada Bharat, he saw ants on the floor. And he knew, I cannot step on these ants. So he was walking like a drunken person, not to step on any ants. And Maharaj Rahugana, he said, what's wrong with you? You cannot do your service properly? So initially, Jada Bharat, he accepted that chastisement, but when it was getting too much, he instructed Maharaj Rahugana. And these instructions, they are like the essential instructions of the 5th canto. Because the main teaching he gave to Maharaj Rahugana was that you may be in the body of a king, but that's temporary. So therefore, what is more important is the inner cultivation than your external opulence or renunciation. So therefore, sthanam, the topic of being properly situated in life, means that we find that place from which we can cultivate our Krishna consciousness while gradually becoming detached from this world. And the key verse is given in the 1st chapter of this canto, text 14. And there it said, I have it only here in Portuguese, let me open this quickly. So 5:1:14. It's a very key verse of the 5th canto. There it said, my dear boy, all of us are bound by the Vedic injunctions to the divisions of Varna Ashram according to our qualities and work. These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of Varna Ashram Dharma, like bulls obliged to move according to the direction of a driver, pulling on ropes knotted to their noses. So that's 5:1:14. Sri Jagannath Baladev Subramani ki jai, Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that all of us, we have to execute our duties according to the Varna Ashram divisions, namely as a Brahmana, as a Kshatriya, Vaishya or Sudra. Mark, have you heard about that before? Varna Ashram Dharma? You familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So why that is so important? And the analogy is given here of a bull. The bull either has a ring or has a rope throughout the nose. Like bulls, they're very strong animals and very insensitive also. They just step over you if you're in the middle of the way. But the nose of the bull is very sensitive. So when the driver of the cart pulls on the rope, the bull immediately feels some pain, which means the driver has to pull the rope when the bull goes away from the path which he is meant to take. And then by pulling the rope, the bull is corrected and continues in the proper direction. In the same way, by following the Vedic instructions, according to our Varna and Ashram, when we deviate from that path, then there's some pain. We experience some pain. But that pain is very, how to say, it's something gradual. Like when you cut your finger, you feel that immediately. But losing ourselves is something which happens gradual, in stages. And you only realize that in a moment when it becomes manifested externally. You may feel internally something is wrong. My mind is making crazy ideas. But the mind has so many ideas every day. So therefore, when we start to act on that, when it becomes manifested, when it becomes visible, then we know we are not on the right path anymore. But those who follow the prescriptions of the Vedic scriptures, they can analyze any moment if I'm on the proper path, according to my Varna and my Ashram. And the Vedic injunctions, they are based on 4 pillars. In Canto 7, chapter 11, text 8 to 12, Narada Muni, he's instructing Yudhisthira Maharaj on 30 principles which each human being has to follow. And the first 4 of them are the pillars of Dharma. So please help me quickly, what are the 4 pillars of Dharma? Truthfulness, satyam. What else? Tapaha, austerity. Saucham, purity. And the last one? Ahimsa, non-violence. So the 4 pillars of Dharma are truthfulness, compassion, austerity, and purity. And we know that the bull represents these 4 pillars of Dharma, but in Kali Yuga, the bull only remains to stand on one leg, which is truthfulness. So even the other 3 legs, they are already cut. But if truthfulness remains, we can re-establish the other principles. It's not, okay, in Kali Yuga, purity, austerity, that's not working anymore. No, it's working. As long as we are truthful, we can re-establish these principles. And that's the main message of the 5th canto, that we have to situate ourselves properly in this life so that we can gradually progress in our evolution. And for those who are not able, like willingly not able to follow the Vedic injunctions, there is this downward spiral which leads to the hellish planets. Now, the hellish planets in the 26th chapter, they are very vivid descriptions of these planets. It's not a nice place to be. But we don't have to wait for a moment where we may enter the hellish planets, because we can experience that hell within already. Like when we deviate from the principles, then we're creating our own hell within. Now, the challenge is that, again, often we only realize when it's too late. So therefore, it's so important to be in the association of devotees, where we have good examples and where we can see ourselves like in the reflection of these examples. Devotees who inspire us. And also we want to be good association for others. It's not just that we want to take association, we also want to give association. That's the loving exchanges amongst devotees. So therefore, it's necessary that we find our proper place, that we develop the mindset and the skills, like the principles which are related with that ashram, and then act in Krishna consciousness according to our present position. Because premature renunciation creates problems in society. And I think we experience that also within our ISKCON society, that premature renunciation is not favorable because society means cooperation. Yeah. In Varna Ashram, Krishna, he's the center. And everyone learns to cooperate with each other for the pleasure of Krishna. So therefore, Varna Ashram is a society free of envy. Now, are we free of envy? Again, we experience ourselves in the association. And when we experience jealousy or envy or any lower qualities, then we know we are still on that path of purification. And that purification works, we have to be properly situated. And when we want to move on to the next ashram, for example, a brahmachari wants to move to the grihastha ashram, then one has to prepare oneself for that transition. One has to first develop the mindset internally and the skills so that one can follow his duty in the next stage of life. If a grihastha wants to renounce and become a vanaprastha or sannyasi, then it's first an inner cultivation. Again, cultivating the mindset and the necessary skills to succeed in the next ashram. Because once we move externally, then all the challenges are coming. But there's always a transition phase, that phase in between. That doesn't mean that it's a tatastha ashram. Tatastha means in between, marginal. You're situated properly in one ashram, but internally there's a preparation to the next. And by fulfilling one's duty in one ashram, one becomes qualified to move on to the next ashram. So these are stages or lessons in life which we have to go through. Let me see if I have any more notes. And in that sense, Varna Ashram is protecting us. We know that Varna Ashram is not the end in itself, but it's a safe place to be in this world. Yeah? Like a mango. Who of you likes mangoes? Everyone likes mango. It's the queen of the fruits. So a mango, when you take the peel away from the mango, that juicy, sweet mango within a short time becomes very pale and dry. So the essence is inside the mango, the fruit. But the peel is what is protecting the mango. In the same way, our cultivation of Krishna consciousness, that's the internal. The fruit which wants to ripen. But what gives protection is Varna Ashram. That we are situated properly according to our nature and in a phase of life which gives us the proper facilities we need. Any questions up to this point? Concerns? Critics?
It was a very nice explanation. An interesting theory. What is the Varnashram Dharma? Cooperate with Varna and Ashram to gradually build up your love for Krishna. And it's necessary for our society to know this practice of Varna, and after doing what is the Varna, we can find our ashram and be more we can walk easily to practice your duty
Thank you. That was very precise. I mean, we could write an article on that, what you just shared now. Thank you. Prabhu.
Thank you for this nice explanation. One very this topic about Varnashram. And recently I also wrote for a book for my Guru Dev also, like an overview about similar topics. It was an essay for a book, and actually I a little bit researched, not that much, from Srila Prabhupada, but actually because sometimes we have this misunderstanding even in ISKCON, we need, we don't need Varnashram. Chaitanya told no, it's not necessary, this and that, but actually if you really carefully really study, you need it. Actually this is described only after a very elevated platform, we don't need it. Then it's okay, then you are detached from this ashram and varnas. Otherwise we have to, we are not pure enough, then this, how you say, this is the guidance and the protection, and actually we have to do it. Often we don't like to accept it or this and that. I mean, we don't say we are Shudras or Kshatriyas or whatever, but still we have to have somehow system in it. Otherwise it wouldn't work. Everybody has his nature and it should work according to this. And it has also described, and it's very important to protect.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting because it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur who brought in again the topic of Varnashram Dharma into Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. The six Goswamis didn't speak anything about Varnashram Dharma because they were on that state of elevated consciousness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was there too. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his mission was to prepare Gaudiya Vaishnavism for modernity. He saw what the present time needs. And therefore Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and our Srila Prabhupada, they took up that spirit from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And if we look into our practice of Krishna consciousness, like we are always on two tracks. There's Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. Like our worship according to Narada Pancharatra, that's Vaidhi Bhakti. But then the 9 processes which Prahlad Maharaj describes in Srimad Bhagavatam, they're on the level of Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So we are on these two tracks. On the level of Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, Varnashram may not be so relevant. But we are going on 2 tracks. We have to find our place and then develop our Krishna consciousness inside and outside. And therefore to have clarity, what is my inclination? What am I meant to do in this world? What is my contribution to society? Is very essential. Because otherwise we may follow that path of renunciation without having the internal qualification. And it's neither good for us and it's not good for society. So therefore, finding our place, then acting according to the principles of Dharma, then we are on the safe path. But internally, we cultivate that renunciation also, so that we can gradually move on into different phases of life. And to be in good association, that's the key. And this is what Bharat Maharaj teaches us, that while we perform our austerities, stay in the association of devotees. Because there you get inspiration, but you also reflect yourself to the eyes of others. You can always situate yourself and then correct again when there's some deviation on the path. So that's a safe place in this world, to cultivate our Krishna consciousness. And that's the main teaching of the 5th canto, to find our proper place, not just within this universe, but within society, so that we can gradually develop our Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. We're going to end here. Kandarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai, Go Premanande Hari Bo. Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai.